My husband looked me in the eye and said, "Your parents are your problem. Your money is yours and my money is mine." So I smiled, accepted his rule, and stopped sending his family $2,500 every month. 30 days later, every single one of them was panicking. People think a man's world ends loudly. It doesn't. It ends at 6:40 on a Thursday evening in a bedroom in Southeast Portland with a crooked tie and a set of keys landing on a dresser. Day 30. I'd been counting. Daniel came through the door pale and sweating, and his hands wouldn't stay still. My mom called me crying, he said. The mortgage bounced. The bank charged her fees on top of fees. Dad's truck payment is late. Megan's insurance lapsed. He dropped the keys. "Claire, look at me. What did you do?" I was folding laundry. I remember the towel in my hands was the good kind, the heavy hotel kind my mother buys on sale every January. And I remember thinking that my mother has bought us towels and hosted his holidays and fed his entire family for 3 years, and that her heart, her actual physical heart, had been declared not his problem in our kitchen exactly 30 days earlier. I looked up and gave him the same smile he'd given me that night, the identical one. I'd practiced it without meaning to. I stopped making your family my problem. He sat down on the edge of the bed like someone had unplugged his legs. To understand that smile, what it cost me, and what it was about to cost everyone with the last name Whitaker, you have to go back 3 years to the first month of my marriage when I made the mistake of being good at helping. My name is Claire. I'm 34, and for the last 9 years, I've worked in revenue cycle for one of the big hospital networks in Portland. If you don't know what that means, it means I spend 40 hours a week inside other people's medical bills, insurance denials, coding appeals, charity care applications, payment plans, the fine print that decides whether a family keeps their house after a surgery. The job teaches you 2 commandments: document everything and never trust what anyone says about money. Trust the statement. I would love to tell you I applied those commandments at home. For 3 years, I did not. Daniel sells surgical equipment. He's 36, good-looking in a golf catalog way, and he is the guy who remembers your kid's name and picks up the check. Generous is the word people always used about him. It took me 3 years to learn the difference between generous and generous with someone else's money. His family lived 20 minutes east in Gresham. Linda, his mother, 61, runs the volunteer schedule at her church and believes in appearances the way other people believe in God. Robert, his father, 64, spent 30 years loading freight and says maybe 40 words a year, all of which he means. Megan, his sister, 27, does hair at a salon and has been getting on her feet since high school. The $2,500 didn't start as $2,500. Nothing ever does. It started 2 months into our marriage when Linda called Daniel crying. Robert's overtime had been cut at the freight yard. The mortgage was short $1,400, and it was just this month, sweetheart. Daniel was between commission checks. Daniel was always between commission checks. So he asked if I could cover it, just this once. He'd get the next one. The next month he was short again. The 3rd month, nobody called it anything at all. It was just the 15th. By the end of the 1st year, the standing transfers out of my checking account looked like this: $1,400 to cover Linda's mortgage gap, $600 for Robert's truck payment, $300 for Megan's phone bill and car insurance, and $200 for the little emergencies that arrived every other week like they had a subscription, a dental bill, a credit card minimum, a rental deposit for a cousin I had met exactly twice. Linda called it family support. Daniel called it being a good wife. He also liked to say, "They're my family now, so they're yours too." And for an embarrassingly long time, I thought that sentence was sweet. I hadn't noticed yet that it only ran in one direction. Because here is my family side of the ledger, for the record. My parents, Tom and Elaine, put $18,000 toward our wedding. His family contributed opinions. When Daniel's Passat ate its transmission in year 2, my dad handed him the keys to his own Camry and rode the 72 bus for 2 months without mentioning it once. My mom cooked Thanksgiving for all of them every year in her small kitchen, while Linda critiqued the turkey like a Michelin inspector holding a coupon. My mother sent Daniel home with leftovers. My father slipped him gas money. Nobody ever called my parents' family when they needed something. Nobody ever needed to because my parents never asked. If I'm being honest with you, and this story only works if I am, the red flags were filed neatly the entire time. Daniel said we whenever money went out. We help family. We take care of our own. And he said you whenever money came in. You got your bonus, right? You're getting the annual raise? I noticed. Of course I noticed. Noticing discrepancies is my literal profession. I just kept telling myself that marriage math wasn't supposed to balance, that love was the rounding error, that it would even out. Every 15th of the month, $2,500 left my checking account. Mine. My paycheck. My name in the corner of the statement. And then, 3 years in, on a Tuesday night in September, my mother's heart landed on our kitchen counter and the math asked to be done out loud. My dad had retired early 2 years ago after a stroke. He recovered well. He'll tell you the only lasting damage is that his left hand gets tired and his patience got shorter. But early retirement on a fixed income leaves no slack in the rope. Then in July, my mom's cardiologist found the arrhythmia. The procedure itself, a catheter ablation at an in-network hospital, went beautifully. She was home in 2 days making jokes about her tune-up. The bill did not go beautifully. Insurance paid its share and then the envelope came, and I opened it at my parents' kitchen table because my mother's hands were shaking too much to do it herself. Patient responsibility, $9,401.12. I read explanations of benefits for a living, so I saw instantly what had happened. The anesthesiology group at her in-network hospital was out of network. It's the oldest trap in American medicine, the kind of billing that has a federal law named after it, the kind I appeal on behalf of total strangers every single day of my working life. It could be fought down. It could not be fought to zero, and my parents' budget had no room in it for a 4-figure surprise. So that Tuesday night, I set the bill on the counter between us and asked my husband for one thing. Not money, not his money. I asked whether we could lower, not stop, what went to his family each month just for a little while, just until my mom's bill was handled. He didn't pause. He didn't ask how much the bill was. He didn't ask how she was feeling. I want that on the record too. He never once asked how she was feeling. Your parents, your problem, Daniel said. Your money is yours. My money is mine. Arms crossed, chin lifted. He delivered it like a judge reading a verdict he'd rehearsed in the car, and there was something almost proud in it, like he'd finally drawn a boundary he'd read about in some book about boundaries. Something inside me went very still. Not cold, still. The way a room goes still when someone finally says the quiet thing out loud, and you realize you've been waiting years to hear it in plain English. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't recite 3 years of receipts, though God knows I had them. I smiled. All right, I said, your money is yours. My money is mine. He nodded, satisfied. He actually looked pleased with himself. He thought he had won a negotiation. What he had actually done was sign a contract, and like most people who sign things proudly, he hadn't read it. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table at 6:52 a.m. with my coffee and my banking app, and I honored my husband's rule with the exact thoroughness I bring to a quarterly audit. Recurring transfer, $1,400. Memo, L mortgage, canceled. Recurring transfer, $600. Memo, R truck, canceled. Recurring transfer, $300. Memo, M phone-ins, canceled. Recurring transfer, $200. Memo, family misc, canceled. Then I set up 2 new ones, $1,500 a month to Tom and Elaine, and $1,000 a month into a brand new savings account at a credit union across town. 1 branch, 1 debit card, 1 name on the paperwork, mine. The whole thing took 4 minutes. 3 years of bleeding closed off before my coffee went cold. I sat there afterward and waited to feel guilty because I'd been trained my whole life to feel guilty at moments like that. What I felt instead was my own pulse, steady for the first time in months. Week 1, nothing. Total silence. 4 canceled transfers, 4 Whitakers, not 1 phone call. I want you to sit with what that silence meant, because it took me a few days to fully absorb it myself. None of them noticed, not because the money didn't matter. The money was holding up their entire lives, but because not one of them in 3 years had ever looked at where it came from. It arrived, they spent it. For 3 years, I had imagined some flicker of awareness on the other end of those transfers. Gratitude, even resentment, anything. There was no other end. There was just an open drain, and I had been mistaking the sound of draining for the sound of family. Week 2, my phone buzzed on a Thursday afternoon. Linda. Hi, sweetheart. Did the bank mess up Danny's transfer? Danny's transfer. I stood in the break room at work and read that text maybe 10 times. Danny's transfer, 36 months, $90,000 out of my paycheck, and the woman receiving it had always believed comfortably, completely, that it came from her son. And then, the way a single lab value reframes every symptom on the chart, 3 years reorganized themselves in my head. The birthday card that had been on our fridge since March. Danny, thank you for taking such good care of us. Linda at Easter, squeezing his arm in front of the whole table. I don't know what we'd do without you. Robert at the wedding of the cousin whose rental deposit I had paid, putting one hand on Daniel's shoulder and issuing one of his 40 annual words. You're a good man, Dan. My husband had spent 3 years being a good man on my paycheck, and he had never once, not at a birthday, not at a holiday, not in a single private moment, corrected the record. I typed one clean reply, no mistake. Daniel said our money is separate now, his rule. Please ask him. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. Week 3, the panic found its legs. Megan sent 6 texts in one afternoon, escalating like a kettle. Is something wrong with the account? My insurance is due Friday. This isn't funny. Hello? The last 2 were just my name with more punctuation each time. I didn't answer a single one. Not my family, not my problem. A very wise man taught me that in my own kitchen. Robert called twice and left no message, and I'll admit that unsettled me more than all of Megan's punctuation combined. Robert never wasted a phone call. Silence from a quiet man is different. It means he's rehearsing. Linda left one voicemail, her church voice with a crack down the middle of it, about sorting out this misunderstanding as a family, sweetheart. There was no misunderstanding. For the first time in 3 years, everything was operating exactly as stated. That Sunday night, while Daniel watched football in the other room, still golden, still oblivious, I did the thing 9 years of revenue cycle had drilled into me until it stopped being a skill and became a reflex. I opened my laptop and created a folder with the most boring name I could invent, Household Admin, and I started filling it. Screenshots of every text, time-stamped. Linda's voicemail, exported and backed up. 36 months of bank statements, downloaded as PDFs, 1 per month, named by date. I didn't fully know yet what I was building. Some part of me knew exactly. Which brings us back to day 30. The crooked tie, the keys on the dresser, the question, what did you do? Asked by a man who had needed an entire month and his mother's tears to notice a $2,500 hole in the world because the hole had never once been in his bucket. I stopped making your family my problem. What followed was the loudest hour of our marriage, and I say that as someone who barely raised her voice. Daniel paced. Daniel lectured. He called me vindictive. He said I was punishing his family over one comment. He said family doesn't keep score, which I've since learned is a thing people say exclusively when they were losing. I stood there folding towels with a heart rate I'd have flagged on a monitor, and when he finally ran out of speech, I said the sentence I'd been saving for 30 days. Daniel, it's your rule. I'm just following your rule. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Then say what you meant. He opened his mouth, he closed it. Because what he meant was, your money is ours, and my money is mine. And even Daniel cried. He couldn't say that sentence out loud with his tie still crooked from the drive home. Fine, he said. He'd handle his family himself. Handle it, I said. 2 days later, $400 left our joint bills account. I need to explain that account because it matters. We kept exactly one joint account, and it existed for exactly 4 things: our mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries. We each auto-deposited a set amount every payday, calibrated to the penny, calibrated by me, obviously. And in 5 years, it had never once been touched for a Whitaker. It was not a slush fund. It was the house's blood supply. I caught the withdrawal the same day it posted because checking accounts is not a habit for me. It's a reflex, like a nurse counting breaths. Our own mortgage autopay was 9 days out, and the account was now $900 short of covering it. When I put the screen in front of him, he shrugged. He actually shrugged. It's my money too. And there it is, I remember thinking, with something that was almost admiration for the purity of it. The rule has an asterisk. The asterisk is him. I didn't fight. Fighting was the thing he was prepared for. He'd been rehearsing counter-arguments for 2 days, I could tell. Instead, I quietly moved $900 from my new credit union account into the joint account. Mine. Traceable, documented with a memo, so that our mortgage cleared. And the next morning, I sat down with HR and resplit my direct deposit, exactly my calibrated share of household costs, into the joint account, to the dollar, not $1 more. Everything else went where his rules said it belonged. If we were going to be separate, we were going to be surgically separate. The audit happened on a Saturday because betrayal, in my experience, keeps business hours. Daniel was at a golf event with his regional manager. I made a full pot of coffee, opened my laptop at the kitchen table, and did to my own marriage what I do to hospital accounts all week, a reconciliation. Every account, every month, 36 months. I wasn't hunting for anything specific. That's the honest truth. I was looking because looking is what I do when the ground stops feeling solid, the way other people clean. By noon, I had the known universe mapped, $90,000 even, in standing transfers over 3 years. I had always known the monthly number. I had never once let myself see it as a single figure. Seeing it in one cell of a spreadsheet did something strange to my breathing. By 4 in the afternoon, I'd found the Venmos. Daniel's account was still synced to the old shared email address he'd never bothered to unlink because details were never his department. Payments to Megan. Spot me. Got you. Don't tell Mom, LOL. 27 of them over 2 years. $150 to $300 each. $5,400 I had never known about, sent from his personal checking during the exact months he told me commissions were thin. The same months he'd asked me to float a little extra into the joint account. Floated it. I always floated it. And at 11:40 that night, I found the card, a Chase statement, sitting in the unsorted folder of that same old shared email. A card we had opened together 5 years ago for wedding expenses. A card I had personally paid down to zero after the honeymoon and asked him to close. I remember asking. I remember him saying, done. Current balance, $11,206.83. My name, second line, directly under his. I sat in my kitchen at midnight scrolling through 3 years of a dead card's afterlife. Linda's dental crown, $1,850, an endodontist in Gresham. Les Schwab, $640. Megan's breaks per a text I'd find later. A $500 on a lake cabin for a Whitaker family reunion that I had apparently co-hosted. I was at work that entire weekend. DoorDash, 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 every address in Gresham. And underneath all of it, the quiet machinery, minimum payments only on autopay from his personal checking for years, enough to keep it invisible, never enough to make it smaller. My hands were cold, not shaking, cold in a warm kitchen in October, like my blood had been reassigned somewhere more urgent. I printed statements until the printer ran out of paper at 1:40 in the morning, and then I stood there holding warm pages with cold hands, doing the only math that mattered. 90,000 known, 5,400 hidden, $11,206.83 in joint debt I had been told was closed, quietly compounding under my name and my credit. 3 years, call it $106,000 and change. When I asked him about the card the next evening, calmly printouts face down on my lap like a closed chart, he looked at the stack instead of at me and said, "It's handled. It's $11,000, Daniel. It's handled." A beat. Then he found his footing, and the counterattack came out with real conviction. "You audited me? Your own husband?" 9 years of appeals work has taught me precisely what that tone is. It's the sound a denial makes when the documentation is right. Monday morning, I did what I tell overwhelmed patient families to do every single week. I stopped trying to be my own expert. Patricia Okafor's office sits above a bakery on Division, and the whole suite smells faintly of sourdough, which takes more of the edge off financial forensics than you'd expect. CPA, 22 years in practice, with the letters CFF after her name, certified in financial forensics, the credential that comes out of the drawer when marriages and small businesses die messy. A coworker's sister had used her and said only, "She finds everything." Patricia read my binder for 40 minutes without speaking, turning pages with the eraser end of a pencil. The first full sentence she said to me was, "You organize like an auditor." "Revenue cycle," I said. "It shows." She tapped the summary page. "2 things, and I need you to hear both. 1. Stop saying his money and my money. You're married in Oregon. A great deal of this is marital money, and a court decides the rest, not a kitchen. 2. From today, you document like this ends in front of a judge, and you behave like it doesn't. Don't drain anything, don't hide anything, don't get clever. Be boring. She looked at me over her glasses. Boring wins. She had me pull my credit reports that same afternoon. All 3 bureaus. Equifax came back at 643. 2 years earlier, I had been a 790. The difference sitting right there in black and white was a supposedly closed card running at 92% utilization with my name on it. I stared at that number in a bakery-scented office and finally understood what this actually was. Not generosity, not in-law drama. My name had been quietly spent. The second professional was Diane Reyes, family law, 19 years. A corner office with a commanding view of a parking structure. And a handshake like a door closing. The consultation cost $350, and it was the best $350 I have ever spent, including the boots. Oregon is an equitable distribution state, she told me. Equitable, not equal. Judges have discretion, and discretion is shaped by documentation. She nodded at the binder. Yours is unusually good. Then she taught me the phrase that quietly reorganized my entire year. Dissipation of marital assets. Marital money spent for non-marital purposes, concealed transfers, secret debts, one spouse's family bailouts made without the other's knowledge can be charged back against the spender's share of the settlement. If it comes to that, she added, watching my face, it may not. Her instructions were short. Keep paying my share of the mortgage from my own traceable account. Keep the binder current and sign nothing. Nothing, she repeated. And then, with absolutely no idea how loudly it would echo 6 weeks later, especially anything with the word cosigner on it. The third professional was Dr. Marcus Hale, licensed marriage and family therapist, 26 years in practice, a small office in Multnomah Village with a clock you could hear. I wanted on the record that I tried. Whatever else is true about how this ended, I booked the appointment, I paid the copays, and I sat on that couch in good faith. Daniel came. 6 sessions. He was charming for 4 of them, and Hale, to his lasting credit, does not run on charm. In session 5, the mask slipped in front of a licensed witness. We were on the transfers, and Daniel leaned forward with the patient, faintly condescending calm of a man explaining something to a slow customer. Her parents have a pension and savings, he said. Mine have nothing. It's not the same thing. She can afford to help. That's not a crime. Hale let the clock tick twice. Whose paycheck funded the support these 3 years? That's not the point. It might be the only point, Hale said. It was the one time in 6 sessions I watched a therapist come all the way off the fence. Daniel called it an ambush in the parking lot afterward. We did not book a 7th session. Then it was November, and everything happened inside the same 2 weeks. Robert came to our house on a Sunday holding a manila envelope, handed it to Daniel like contraband, and left without taking his coat off. Inside was a letter from Linda's mortgage servicer, and I knew the letter had language before Daniel finished reading it aloud, because I read hardship paperwork for a living. Linda was more than 120 days delinquent. Not 1 month. Not since September. Not since me. 120 days, which meant the missed payments had started back in early summer. While my $1,400 was still arriving on the 15th like sunrise, the money had never been keeping her afloat. It had only been slowing the sink, and she had told no one, least of all the son whose name she was so proud to say at church. The reinstatement figure, arrears, late fees, return payment fees came to $6,130. Or, the letter offered helpfully, the family could pursue the refinance option the lender had pre-screened, contingent on adding a co-signer with verifiable income. You get exactly one guess whose income verifies. 2 days later, Tuesday, 11:12 a.m., I was at my desk at work on hold with my mom's cardiology billing office to set up the first installment of her payment plan, and I opened our joint savings account to schedule it. Balance $2,114.99. It had been $21,000 on Friday. Our emergency fund. Furnace money, roof money, the account we had fed for 5 years. Fed, if we're being precise, at roughly a 70-30 split, and I was the 70. One outgoing wire initiated Friday afternoon, $18,400 to a loan servicing company in Ohio. He hadn't called, he hadn't texted, he hadn't left a note on the counter. I found out that my marriage's entire safety net was gone from a balance field, on hold, listening to smooth jazz while a stranger's voice said, "Ma'am," twice before I could answer. I couldn't feel my fingertips. That's the detail I keep. Not rage, not tears, absence. I looked down at my hands on the keyboard, and they looked like they belonged to the hospital. That night, the refinance packet was waiting on our kitchen table, flagged with a yellow sticky arrow the way you'd flag a birthday card for a signature, co-borrower. Daniel stood on the other side of the counter, our exact positions from September, perfectly reversed, and I don't think he ever noticed the staging and made his closing argument. The wires stop the foreclosure clock. The refi makes it permanent. You sign, her payment drops to something Dad can actually carry on his pension, and this whole nightmare is over. He softened his voice for the finish, and I genuinely believe he thought he was being kind. She's my mother, Claire. Be family. The lender's deadline was Friday, 5 p.m., 72 hours. I want to be honest about those 72 hours, because from the outside, the choice looks easy, and from the inside, nothing ever is. Sign, and I was legally chained to Linda Whitaker's house for 30 years. My income, my credit, my name on the debt of a woman who had eaten my mother's Thanksgiving cooking for 3 years and critiqued the turkey. Refuse, and I became permanently, in every version of the story told at every Whitaker table forever, the woman who tried to put Grandma on the street. Refuse, and my marriage, which was already over, I knew it was over, I had known since September, ended officially at a kitchen counter in the same spot where it had already died once without anyone filing the paperwork. I didn't sleep Tuesday. Wednesday at 4:51 p.m., I called Diane Reyes and she picked up her own phone. I told her about the wire, the packet, the yellow arrow, the deadline. There was a pause whose exact length I will remember for the rest of my life. Then, flat and kind at the same time, do not sign anything. And Claire, open your binder and write today's date next to that wire. $18,400 of marital funds moved to a third party's debt without your knowledge or consent. There's a word for that. You already know the word, dissipation. Come in Monday, she said. And Claire, you're allowed to feel awful and still be right. I didn't sign, but I didn't just refuse either. I asked for a family meeting. Me. I called Linda myself, the first time we'd spoken in 2 months, and told her I wanted everyone at her kitchen table on Sunday at 2. Because in this family, verdicts get read in kitchens, and I wanted the home field to be theirs when this one landed. I brought the binder, 36 tabs, 1 per month, and a single summary page on top. I set it down in the middle of the table, turned it to face them, and did the thing I am professionally more qualified to do than anyone else in that house. I presented findings, no adjectives, line items. Linda, $50,400 over 36 months, tab 1 highlighted. Robert, $21,600, tab 2. Megan, $10,800 in standing transfers, plus $5,400 through Venmo, tab 3. And Megan's face did something complicated. Miscellaneous family emergencies, $7,200. The joint credit card currently tearing family expenses, $11,206.83, which reports against my credit, not just his. Total, 3 years, $106,000 in change. Then I slid a bank statement across the table, my checking, my name in the corner. My employer's payroll deposits running down the left side like a heartbeat. Every transfer until 34 days ago came from this account, not Daniel's, mine. Every month for 3 years. The silence had a texture. Robert stared at the summary page the way men like Robert stare at engine trouble. Megan said, "Wait," twice to no one in particular. And Linda looked at the statement, then at her son, and asked the question that ended my marriage, which is to say, my marriage was ended by a Whitaker, and it wasn't me. Daniel, you told us it was you. You told us it was handled. You told us it was you. He started 3 different sentences. It was, we, the household. None of them had a verb strong enough to carry the weight. I sat there and watched my husband search in real time in front of witnesses for a way to say, your money was ours and my money was mine, and discovered that the sentence does not survive daylight. Megan left first. She called me a name on her way out that I'll leave to your imagination, and her car door made the whole house jump. Daniel found his footing where he always found it, indignation. This was an ambush. Family business isn't a spreadsheet. I had humiliated his mother at her own table. Robert cleared his throat. Everyone stopped because Robert speaking is a weather event. He put one finger on tab 2. The truck, he said. What's my number? All of it. $21,600, I said. He nodded once, the way he'd nod at a pallet count, and that was all. But 3 weeks later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox with a check for $200 and "for truck" printed in the memo line in block capitals. And another one has arrived every month since. I need you to understand this about the Whitstickers. The one who spoke 40 words a year was the only one who understood the assignment on the first read. The refinance packet was still in my bag. I took it out, set it in the middle of Linda's table, unsigned, and laid my palm flat over the yellow arrow. "Your parents are your problem," I said to my husband in front of his mother, quietly, like a verdict. "Your money is yours. My money is mine. I didn't make the rule. I'm just the only person at this table who ever followed it." There was no Thanksgiving that year. My mother cooked anyway for 4, and nobody critiqued anything. Diane filed the petition 11 days later. The divorce took 5 months and was, by her professional assessment, clean because you made it boring. The binder did what binders do. The $18,400 wire entered the settlement as Exhibit C, the confirmation slip Daniel never imagined I'd request from the bank because he had never once imagined that banks are staffed by people like me. It was treated as dissipation of marital assets and came out of his column. Most of it offset against his share of the house. The house sold in 3 weeks, slightly under asking. Portland was soft that spring, and the split was not 50-50, and every dollar of the difference behind it. I kept my retirement, my credit union account, and because I asked for it, and because Diane called the request petty in a way courts respect, which may be the nicest thing anyone said to me all year. The Camry, my dad's Camry, the one he handed to Daniel while he himself rode the 72 bus. Daniel didn't fight for it. I'd like to believe he understood why. I doubt it. The Chase card went to him alone. His name, a balance transfer, a signature, and a 22.9% APR that is no longer any of my business. Closing my side of it cost me 1 phone call. My credit took 11 months to climb out of the crater and sits at 781 now, which Patricia called a full recovery in the tone doctors use for the word remission. And the transfers, because this is the part people always ask about. The transfers are his now, all of them, on one income. The refinance closed with Daniel as sole co-signer, and 8 months later, Linda sold the house anyway and moved to a 2-bedroom in Gresham, 10 minutes from Megan, who works Saturdays at the salon now. Nobody is ruined, nobody is on the street. The weight simply landed at last on the one person who had spent 3 years insisting it was weightless. I'm told it turns out to be heavy. My mother's bill, since you've been kind enough to worry about her, I did for her exactly what I do for strangers. The out-of-network anesthesia charge had no business surviving a No Surprises Act review, and it didn't. $20,900 of it reprocessed at in-network rates. I negotiated a prompt pay reduction on the remainder and paid $6,808 total in full from the account with one name on it. It was the single most satisfying invoice of my professional life. Her cardiologist says her numbers are boring now. In my line of work, boring is the most beautiful word in medicine. It has been 14 months since the verdict in my kitchen. I rent a small place in Selwood with a galley kitchen you can touch both walls of, which suits me fine. I've learned to be careful about what gets decided in kitchens. Sunday dinners are at my parents' house now, every week. My dad pats the camera's hood when I pull in, like it's an old dog that found its way home. My mom cooks too much food on purpose. Nobody critiques the turkey. Robert's envelopes keep coming. He's $4,800 in. I tried once, gently, to tell him he could stop, and he gave me the longest sentence I'd heard from him in 4 years. A man pays for his own truck. Then he asked if the Camry was due for tires because he knows a guy. People ask me if I hate Daniel. I don't, and I've stopped apologizing for how little I feel about that. He gave me exactly one true thing in 3 years of marriage, and he handed it to me like a punishment.